Hello, I'm Jackson Haney from Insane Internet Wrestling, and this is the Hot Tag. Okay, so this is something I've been meaning to cover for a while now, considering that WWE has been doing it non-stop over the past, 2 years? If you don't know what I'm talking about, either 1, you're stupid, or 2, you haven't read the title, or 3, both. But I will explain. Over the past 2 years, WWE has gotten into the habit of releasing about 45% of its roster yearly. And they do this due to, quote unquote, budget cuts. Stupid reason in and of itself, but it doesn't help with the fact that WWE really started this trend last year during the global pandemic, when it was really at its highest stage. It released about, 50% of its roster like that during a global pandemic when they didn't have to. Now, different wrestlers from that spree ended up in different places. Kurt Angle was one of the main names from that list, and he is still a cherished part of WWE history and is still involved with the company to this day. Drake Maverick was also released, but he got re-signed shortly thereafter, and they actually turned it into a storyline, and I don't know how I feel about that now. And then there's Rusev, who rebranded himself as Miro and is the current AEW TNT champion. Good stuff. Even with his success, there's still several other wrestlers who got released that really haven't been the same. They were doing just fine in WWE, and then they left or got released, and now look at them. Main example, Braun Strowman. Yes, Braun Strowman, one of the most popular wrestlers over the past half decade, was released by the company earlier this year due to, again, budget cuts. And it was really stupid. He was released alongside names like Ruby Riott and Aleister Black, both of which are now in AEW under new names, Malachi Black and Ruby Soho, respectively. But Strowman has been relatively quiet. Now, this could be because he is still under a 90-day no-compete clause, but he shouldn't be because Buddy Murphy was released the same day as Strowman, and he's already got a match booked for, a few weeks down the line. So if Murphy's contract clause thing, whatever, is up, Strowman should be too. Oh, I should also probably mention the fact that WWE releases these guys out of the blue. They could be involved in a very high-profile storyline, and then they're let go. For example, again, we turn to Braun Strowman. He was involved in a WWE Championship feud with champion Bobby Lashley and Drew McIntyre, which culminated in a pretty good triple threat match at Backlash earlier this year. Shortly after, Strowman was released. Another example, Aleister Black. He had been off TV for months because of either an injury or WWE just didn't care about the guy. Probably the latter. But when he came back, he was going into a feud with Big E, who was, I believe, at the time, Intercontinental Champion or feuding for it. And then he was let go as soon as Black made his return to TV. Anyway, now I want to talk about the women's division, because the women's division is nowhere near as stacked as it used to be. Asuka is a shell of her former self. Bayley is on the shelf. Sasha Banks takes 3-month breaks every single year. And Charlotte's just there ruining everything. I mean, sure, Becky Lynch is back. Hooray. But also, they released a bunch of really good people, like Peyton Royce, Billie Kay, Ruby Riott, for God's sake. About a third of the first Women's Royal Rumble isn't even in the company anymore. And speaking of Royal Rumbles, WWE releases a Royal Rumble's worth of people every single year. That's 30 names. Some low caliber, some high caliber, gone. Now, I can hear you guys saying, oh yeah, sure, but Strowman was already at the tail end of his career. His prime had passed him. He was no longer as popular. And things like, oh, Aleister Black had dipped in relevancy ever since getting called up from NXT. And yes, those things are true. But the one release that got to me more than anything else was Bray Wyatt's. Yes, for those of you that have been living under a rock for the past few months, WWE released Bray Wyatt from his contract. Bray Wyatt, the Fiend, the best character that WWE had on their roster. The thing that made WWE, for a while at least, cool again. The guy who was world champion twice in the same year. And what's sad about Wyatt's release is that he actually had a valid reason for taking time off. Because he was working on his mental health issues ever since Brody Lee passed away. Wyatt was Brody Lee's best friend, and so they were really close. And ever since Lee passed away, Wyatt has just been coping with the fact that he's gone. And he takes time off to strengthen his mental health and get himself mentally prepared for all of his tasks. And that's what he was doing this time. But he was also trying to come up with new ideas for The Fiend during The Fiend's absence. And WWE let him go for budgetary reasons. By the way, the whole budgetary reasons thing is a huge pile of crap. Vince McMahon is a billionaire, and the company is worth several $billion. They can pay all of their roster and not have to let anyone go. They should have kept The Fiend. Strowman, I get. Black, I get. He wasn't happy with his position. But The Fiend? Really? You left the door wide open for The Fiend to return and begin a feud again with Randy Orton. Get his revenge on the guy. But no, you had to let the guy go. Shame. I know I sound like a broken record at this point, but it bears repeating. WWE has the best roster in the entire world, and they don't know what to do with it. They would call guys up from NXT, thinking they knew what to do with them, and then treat them like absolute garbage. No wonder guys like Andrade and Aleister Black went to AEW. Now, I know these videos, the whole hot tag thing, has just been me trashing WWE. That doesn't mean I hate WWE. Far from it. I still love WWE. I'm still a fan of all of wrestling. WWE, AEW, New Japan, whatever. I just can point out the things that WWE is screwing up on. I'm sure a lot of other people can too. It doesn't mean that we hate WWE. Sure, we think they're stupid, a lot, but it doesn't mean that we hate them and that we will stop watching them. I won't, at least. I'm just aware of the fact that WWE is brain dead and they release some of the best wrestlers in the world to give to their competition. Let's just hope that they can keep everyone else. Let's just hope that they don't let anyone else slip away. I'm Jackson Haney from Insane Internet Wrestling, and that was the Hot Tag.